Welcome back to the Deep Dive. You gave us a stack of fascinating sources, all about emotional expression in English, and today, well, we're going to cut right through the noise and give you the essentials. Our mission is pretty clear. We want to turn the very challenging art of talking about your feelings into a real tactical advantage in communication. I mean, think about it. We spend so much time perfecting presentations or grammar, memorizing facts.
Hmm.
But that subtle language of emotion, the ability to really articulate how you feel, that's the real shortcut. It's a shortcut to powerful social and, professional connection.
It absolutely is.
If you can master this, you're not just fluent, you're actually well-informed about the human side of any interaction.
It's maybe the highest leverage skill you can develop. It's like the human operating system for language. So today we're going to cover the foundational reasons this skill gives such huge returns. We'll also get into the sneaky mental pitfalls that trip everyone up, especially that critical difference between a thought and a feeling.
Oh, that was huge.
It is. And then we'll build a toolkit, a really robust one, full of vocabulary and sentence structures to make sure you can express your feelings with precision.
Okay, let's unpack that core idea first. Why is it so crucial to move beyond just saying, I'm fine, or, I'm happy? What does the material tell us about the foundational why? It seems like in a lot of English-speaking contexts, expressing your internal state is seen as a sign of authenticity, of honesty.
It absolutely is. And the research we looked at doesn't treat this like some kind of soft skill. It treats it like a high return investment. When you express emotions clearly, you get four really powerful, really practical advantages.
Okay.
The first is just immediate clarity in relationships. It sounds so simple, right? But if you don't articulate what you need and what you feel, everyone around you is just guessing.
Right, and they're probably guessing wrong.
They're almost always guessing wrong. So this just removes the guesswork. The second benefit is better and faster problem solving. When a conflict comes up, the moment you can clearly name the underlying emotion, say you name frustration instead of just vague anger, you've pretty much identified the core issue. And that makes finding a solution, exponentially easier.
That makes perfect sense. If I just stomp around and say, I hate this situation, that tells you absolutely nothing about this solution.
Nothing.
But if I say, I feel incredibly overwhelmed by this timeline, now we have a concrete problem we can actually start to fix.
Precisely. That's it. And the third advantage is more internal. It's improved mental health. Study after study shows that the simple act of translating a messy internal feeling into a precise verbal statement, it actually reduces stress and anxiety.
Wow.
It stops that emotion from just cycling endlessly in your head.
So the linguistic effort itself is therapeutic. That's amazing.
It is. And finally, number 4, it builds deeper self-awareness. Putting words to what's going on inside you is an act of self-discovery. You don't just feel something, you start to understand why you feel it. And that's essential for any kind of personal growth.
And for you, our listener, there's a huge side benefit here. The material really emphasizes that improving this emotional vocabulary is a massive fluency booster. Because you just can't express nuance with simple grammar. It forces you to master subtle words, different tones, complex sentences. It just strengthens your whole communication style.
It really does. It forces you out of that simple declarative rut. If you can articulate being, say, conflicted or disappointed, you've already crossed a major threshold of linguistic mastery.
Okay, so if the benefits are so clear, why is it still so hard? Let's talk about the universal roadblocks, because this isn't just a learner issue. Even native speakers stumble all the time when it comes to this.
All the time. The first obstacle is simple, but it's just so pervasive. Limited vocabulary. We all get stuck on the basics: happy, sad, angry.
The big three.
Exactly. And that misses, probably 90% of the actual human experience.
Yeah.
But the second challenge is a bit more cultural. The fear of vulnerability. Even though English-speaking cultures say they value honesty, there's often this unspoken pressure to seem independent, to have emotional control. So we worry about sounding too dramatic or, even worse, unprofessional. And so we shut our language down.
Yeah, that pressure to seem stoic and always in control is a real hurdle.
Yeah.
But here's the insight that, for me, this is what makes this a true deep dive. The interpretation trap.
Yes.
This idea of the difference between expressing a true feeling and expressing a thought or a judgment, that's just dressed up like a feeling.
This is the most critical distinction to make. When people say, I feel that you should have done the dishes, or the classic, I feel that you don't care about me,
Right.
those are not feelings. They are interpretations. They are judgments about the other person's behavior
Yeah.
that just happen to use the word feel.
So what's the actual feeling underneath that?
Right. Well, the actual feeling might be hurt, or resentment, or fatigue, or maybe just disappointment.
So the key to being precise is to strip away the story we're telling ourselves about the other person's motives.
Exactly.
And just name the raw internal state. That's a total game changer.
Yeah.
But it's so hard because our brains are constantly trying to attribute blame.
Absolutely. Our brain's default is to jump to, why did that happen? The goal of emotional fluency is to pause for a second and just ask, how is this making me feel right now?
And I guess related to all this is that fourth challenge, uncertainty about tone and intensity. When should I be casual versus formal? When do I sound weak versus appropriately intense?
Yeah, and this is where our practical language toolkit really comes in handy.
Okay, let's build it.
Let's do it. Starting with vocabulary, we have to move away from the primary colors and get into the full spectrum of emotions. The first step is just getting comfortable with basic synonyms. So instead of always defaulting to happy, maybe try glad, joyful, or elated.
Instead of sad.
You could try low, down, or even somber. And instead of just angry, you've got irritated, furious, or incensed.
Okay, but the real power, you're saying, comes with the more nuanced emotions,
Yeah.
the words that capture really specific states. Can you give us the definitions the material focused on?
Yeah, let's focus on the definitions. So, frustrated, that means you're annoyed because something isn't working or something is blocking you from a goal.
Okay.
Overwhelmed is that feeling of just too much happening at once, usually tasks or information. Conflicted means you're torn between two choices or ideas.
And disappointed.
Disappointed is simply that your expectations weren't met. And these words, they don't just describe your state, they often suggest what the solution might be.
Right. If I say I'm frustrated, we need to fix the process. If I just say I'm sad, that's much more nebulous. Okay, let's talk about adding some voltage to these words' intensity modifiers.
Yes. These are tiny little words that carry massive weight. You have to be able to signal the magnitude of your feeling. Just compare, say, I'm a little anxious with I'm very anxious, all the way to I'm absolutely terrified.
Huge difference.
Huge.
Yeah.
Using terms like slightly or little signals low intensity, quite, really, or very signals a strong feeling. And then you have absolutely, extremely, or completely at the highest level. If you misuse the modifier, like saying you're slightly furious, it confuses the meaning you're trying to send.
Okay, so we have the vocabulary, we have the modifiers.
Hmm.
Now, how do we package these feelings into clear, natural sentences? What are the structures we should always have ready to go?
There are 4 essential structures. The most direct is just the simple I feel, like I feel uneasy about the delay.
Simple enough.
Then number 2, we have I'm feeling, using that continuous tense. This is great for emphasizing a temporary or situational state. I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed today, kind of signals that this isn't my normal state, which can soften the message a bit.
Okay, and the third one is my favorite.
Yeah.
It gives you instant context. It links the emotion directly to the reason.
Yes, I'm emotion because is so effective because it makes your communication really efficient. I'm relieved because the project deadline was extended. Or if you want to make it clear that an external situation, not a person, is the cause, you can use it makes me feel.
For example,
This constant noise makes me feel irritated. It points to the situation, not the person making the noise.
that distinction, situational versus temporary versus external, that's incredibly sophisticated. Now, what about the social grease? Softening phrases. Why are these so culturally necessary in English, even when we're trying to be direct?
They are absolutely vital for politeness, for showing respect for the listener's perspective. It's especially true when you're sharing something that might be negative. They buffer the statement.
So instead of just dropping a feeling bomb.
Exactly. Instead of just launching into it, you can preface it with something like, to be honest, or I just wanted to share how I'm feeling, or even, I might be wrong about this, but I feel.
These sort of act as a little disclaimer. It shows you're open to a discussion, not just delivering a final verdict.
That's it. And what about when you genuinely can't name the feeling? I mean, that happens all the time.
Yeah, that happens to me a lot.
The sources really encourage expressing that ambiguity instead of trying to force a label.
So you can just say that.
Yeah, you can use phrases like, I'm not sure what I'm feeling, but I know something feels off, or even just, I just feel unsettled. That honesty is so much more constructive than mislabeling the emotion.
Okay, let's tackle the ultimate test. Difficult conversations. When the stakes are high, negative feelings are involved.
Hmm.
How do we use these tools to reduce conflict?
Right. This is where the golden rule of conflict communication, and it was emphasized again and again in all the sources, comes into play. You have to use I statements, not you statements.
Mhm.
This is all about having a radical communication.
Okay, but why is "you make me feel hurt" so problematic? It seems so direct.
It is direct, but it's directly accusatory. It places the entire burden, all the fault, on the listener. It immediately forces them to get defensive, and that just halts any chance of actually fixing things.
And the conversation is over before it started.
Pretty much. The linguistically and, relationally superior approach is, I feel hurt when that happens. You are taking ownership of your emotional reaction. You're just stating the behavior that triggered it without blaming the person's intent.
That subtle shift from blaming their intent to just describing your own experience,
Yeah.
that must take constant practice.
Mm,
It's like fighting the interpretation trap in real time.
that's exactly what it is.
So, for example, instead of assuming "you didn't care about me," which is a judgment about their intention,
Right.
the better statement is, "I felt ignored during the conversation." You're describing the emotion you experience, and you're leaving their motive completely out of the equation.
That is the core of it. And beyond the I statements, there are three other quick strategies for these tough conversations. First, be specific. Don't just say you're stressed.
Say what you're stressed about.
Exactly. Say you're stressed specifically about the ambiguity of next week's schedule. Second, stay calm and respectful. And third, always acknowledge the other person's perspective. Just saying, I understand why you might feel differently, shows incredible emotional maturity. It stops the conversation from becoming a shouting match.
So if we synthesize all this language, the vocabulary, the structures, the softening phrases, what are the cultural norms that kind of glue it all together?
Well, in most professional and social settings, the key is directness that's tempered by politeness. While expressing feelings is, genuinely encouraged as a sign of authenticity, the sources all note that clarity is prized way more than drama.
Mm.
You should avoid excessive exaggeration because culturally it can actually make your expression seem less sincere. So, use your modifiers, honestly.
So we have the why, the mental roadblocks, the specific language tools, and the conflict strategies. For our listener who's ready to put this into action, what are the best practical things they can start doing today?
First, expand your emotional vocabulary constantly. Treat it like a foreign language lexicon. Write down the definitions of words like conflicted or ambivalent and commit to using one new word in a sentence every day.
I like that.
Second, practice with a journal. Write about your daily feelings in English. This is your private lab. It's where you practice translating those messy internal feelings into clean, precise language before you have to do it live in a high-stakes conversation.
And the third strategy is more passive, but it's really powerful. Listen actively.
Yes.
Watch native English speakers in interviews or podcasts. And don't just listen for the content. Listen for the way they express frustration or excitement. Note the tone, the specific phrasing they use naturally.
And finally, if this whole thing feels daunting, just start small.
Yeah.
Practice with light emotions first. I'm a bit peckish, or I feel very relieved it's Friday. Get comfortable with the lower stakes feelings before you try to tackle deep disappointment or conflict.
And don't forget the proactive side. Being fluent here also means knowing how to engage others emotionally. So learn the questions. How are you feeling about this particular part? Or, do you want to talk about it? Or would you rather wait? These questions are the key to building real two-way communication.
Ultimately, the ability to say, I feel, with nuance it's more than just a linguistic achievement. It's a foundational human skill. It's what lets you deepen your self-understanding and connect with other people effectively by genuinely sharing your inner world, not just describing external facts.
That's our deep dive complete. We covered the foundational why, we tackled those tricky roadblocks like the thought versus feeling trap, we built out the specific language tools with modifiers and structures, and gave you strategies for navigating difficult conversations with that essential I statement rule. So here's the final provocative thought we want to leave you with as you go out and use this new emotional toolkit. If achieving fluency is so dependent on mastering subtlety, how often do we mistake a lack of specific vocabulary for a lack of genuine feeling, both in ourselves and in other people? Something to mull over as you begin to precisely name those nuanced emotions.